Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone. Within these 10 minutes, I will share with you the initiative, especially with regards to Shari'ah Audit Framework for Islamic Banking and Finance in Malaysia. This is actually an offshoot of what Dr. Marjan presented earlier with regard to Shari'ah Governance Framework. However, this has yet to be issued as a formal guideline. As most of you are aware, whenever it is a guideline from Bank Negara, it's a bylaw. It is a compulsory and mandatory. But as far as Shari'ah Audit Framework is concerned, this is an initiative that we at ISRA initiated last year for a kind of guideline for the Islamic financial institution to conduct their audit. And this has yet to be issued as a guideline by the central bank. I would like to start by giving you this slide because I shared these slides together with the participants during the Cambridge workshop. Because for me, it's very important. Since the morning, we have been discussing about legal versus moral responsibility, Sharia compliant versus Sharia based, which one is more predominant. But the most important thing, if we understand Sharia compliant framework, such an issue will not be appeared, will not be something to be debated at this juncture, because it's something which is related to audit. I will explain later. Mainly because when we talk about structuring product, that is only the first level of compliance, the ex ante process. This is where in Sharia, particularly with regards to muamalah or financial dealings, the most important thing is not about to determine what is the name of the contract. The most important thing is to base on the principle outlined by Sharia, which with regards to muamalah or financial business transaction, there are generally three major prohibited elements that need to be removed before you can deem that transaction as permissible or not. Namely, riba, usury, gharar, uncertainty, and any element of injustices, be it non-disclosure of something which is very fundamental to be known by the other parties, issues like gambling, maisir, these under the purview of injustices, including whatever fees which is not justifiable. That's why in Islamic finance there's no such thing as hidden fee, hidden charges, because everything must be justifiable. So once you remove all these elements, then only the contract or the product can be deemed as Islamic. Whether you want to name the product based on the contracts which has been known in the past, or also known as nominate contract or uqud musamma, or uqud ghayr musamma, non-nominate contract, which is not known in the past, but it is newly innovated in this contemporary or modern world. It is not a problem. Even, I just would like to reiterate what the speakers in a previous session mentioned. When we talk about financial dealings or business dealings, in Islam, not all are being originated from Islam. Sometimes it is something coming from other civilization, and the Prophet himself endorsed it by making certain modification to avoid or to remove all these prohibited elements. If you look at most of the contracts in Sharia, it is actually originated from other civilization. Salam, for example, is a good example whereby a forward sales is something which is not originated in Islam. It is previously practiced by the Arabs, but because there is a need at that time, the Prophet endorsed it, but with certain modification, namely to remove the element of uncertainty that will lead to dispute. Because this is the whole issue of prohibition, to avoid any potential dispute. But equally, or I would say more important, it's not just about structuring. It's about the exposed, which is involve the whole operation and execution of the transaction, which includes, among others, investment activities, the process of rectifying and purifying, contract execution. This is important because if I can share with you, for the past 2-3 years in Malaysia, after having this audit element in place, then we realized that when it comes to execution of the contract, even though the product is very beautiful from the Shariah point of view, but when it comes to execution of the product, in terms of signing the contract, in terms of following the sequence, in terms of ensuring that the contract fulfills its objective and its essence. Because the most important thing is not just about legal requirement. It's about, you have to understand, every contract has its own nature and purpose. Muqtada al-aqd. This is what my colleague from Bernegara, currently is doing his PhD to look into this issue. Because this is very important. For example, if it is a sales contract, then it has to fulfill the sale objective, which is to transfer ownership. But if the sales contract is not for transferring ownership, the asset is fictitious, there is no proper execution, there is no proper transfer of ownership, you relinquish all your rights, you transfer all the risk to other person. This actually causes a lot of problem. Risk management, which coupled to many of the other instruments, sukuk, you need to have hedging instrument. That's why this also must be Shariah compliant. IT system and accounting, how you account certain transaction to identify whether it's a real Shariah compliant or not. For example, in terms of sukuk, we discussed during the Cambridge, asset-backed versus asset-based. How do you know whether it is a real, genuine sukuk when the asset remains on the balance sheet of the obligor, for example? While, in actual fact, sukuk must represent the ownership of the investors. So these are something which is very important to be looked into, because everything here is just a means to achieve a bigger objective or ultimate objective of Sharia, which is the maqasid Sharia, where it embodies not only the issue of legal but also morality. That's why the issue of whether we can finance company which is known to be disrupting or causing a lot of damages to the environment. If the information is made known to the Shari'ah committee, it is very important for the committee not to endorse such a financing structure to such a company. So this is also part of the Shari'ah compliant framework. So generally when we talk about audit, in Malaysia, a little bit different from AUFI, in a sense that in AUFI, they talk about Shari'ah review, whereas in Malaysia, we distinguish between Shari'ah audit and Shari'ah review. And both are under the component of governance which Dr. Marjan mentioned earlier. Shari'ah audit is meant for auditing the processes and to ensure that the compliance is adhered after the product has been issued. Whereas review process is a continuous process. It started even before the discussion at the Shari'ah committee's levels started. It has to review all the structure, what are the justification. It has to work together with another organ or component of Sharia governance, which is Shari'ah research, to ensure that the whole document are being reviewed accordingly before the product is being offered. So if you look at the definition of Sharia audit here, it's actually a systematic process of obtaining and evaluating sufficient and reliable evidence by a qualified and independent Sharia auditor as a basis to form an opinion as to whether the operations and activities of the entity being audited is in compliance with established Sharia criteria, and reporting the opinion thereon to the stakeholders of the entity. So here, I would like to underline several important points here. Besides being independent, you have to ensure that, because this is an audit, you don't question, like what mentioned by Brother Khairul, you don't question the manner how the Sharia committee or the fatwa made by the Sharia committee, but you may question the process, whether such a justification is there for other persons to evaluate. Now, this is among the important aspects. Alright, I go very, very quickly. Among others, in the Sharia audit framework, the scope that is covered not only in terms of the processes, but you look at the investment, the deposit side, the treasury operation, the marketing and promotion, how you market, how you promote, is there any element of disgraceful, unethical, and so on? Human resource, okay, how do you have any incentive for salesperson to enhance their knowledge in terms of Islamic finance? Zakat and charity, Sharia issues in financial statement. Sharia auditors are not going to audit the financial reporting or Sharia financial report, but they are going to look into what are the issues in financial statement. For example, the allocation of, in Malaysia we practice profit equalization reserve. and it must be transparent, because this, if you are not being transparent, how you manage your equalization, profit equalization reserve, it will invoke Shari'ah issues as well. Finally, I just, because of the time constraint, okay, the most important thing in Shari'ah audit is to identify what are the Shari'ah compliance risks. That's why in any initiative that you want to do in terms of audit, you have to define first what is the level and what is the Shari'ah compliance and non-compliant. That's why you have to identify the level, low risk, medium risk, high risk, because this relates to how you actually manage the risk, particularly with respect to Shari'ah issues, because Shari'ah issues relate to various aspects, not only in terms of instrument, but also in terms of risk. And finally, this is just to show to you the manner how it is being reported to the board of audit committee, for example, because it's very important for you to identify what are the issues pertaining to the findings, the description, the root cause, what are the description of the Shari'ah compliant risk, and then the degree of non-Shari'ah compliant risk, whether it's high, medium, or small. High, here it is defined as when it has an implication to reputation as well as financial, which means you have to channel to charity and so on. So this is just to share with you some of the initiatives that is currently being adopted and practiced in the case of Malaysia. Wallahu a'lam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
Thanks very much.